all for the biology online classes. In the previous class, we have discussed about the cell, its structure and function. So we have a detailed discussion about the various cell organelles and its function. And coming to the today's topic here, the plant tissues. So before going to the plant tissues, we will have what is tissue? Tissue is a group of cells which are similar in structure and performing the same function. And here, when you observe the living organisms from unicellular level to the multicellular level, in unicellular organisms, each and every function is performed by a single cell, whereas in case of multicellular organisms, the definite cells are designed to perform the various functions. Like, for example, in case of plants, here the functions like growth, respiration, excretion, etc. So various functions are performed by the different cells. Okay? Here, to observe the various cells in the plant, we will have some activities like observation of cells. Observation of cells in onion peel. Observation of cells in onion peel. For this activity, we have to take the onion peel and put it on a slide and add a drop of water and cover it with a cover slip and observe it under the simple microscope. Then you will get the compartment-like structures are observed in the onion peel. They are having a cell wall and a definite nucleus. And next, we have an observation of cells in beetle leaf. For this activity, we have to take the leaf peel of the beetle. So we have to break the leaf and take the peel in a single stroke and take a piece of leaf peel and a slide, add a drop of water and cover it with a cover slip, and you will observe it under the microscope. You will also get the compartment-like structures which are called as the cells, and these cells hold the different cell organelles and cytoplasm, nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes, and etc. And they possess the cell wall, nucleus, and cytoplasm is also. Okay, here and next we are having an observation of cells in onion root tip. Onion root tip. So, for this activity, you have to take an onion and take a glass of water, put the base of the onion in a glass of water for a few days. As the roots grow, then collect the tip of the root and put it on a slide and put a cover slip and press it with some needle. So the root tip will be crushed again at the slide, and then observe it under the microscope. You will get the cells like this. Okay, here when you observe the root tip of the onion and onion peel and beetle leaf peel, there is a differences in the shape of the cell and differences in the arrangement of the cell. Even all are cell, but there is a different shapes depending on their function and depending on their location. So these are the few activities to observe the cells in the plant. So okay, next we have a glance on the various types of plant tissues. Okay, plant tissues are mainly three types here. One is meristematic tissue, and dermal tissue, and ground tissue, vascular tissues. Okay, there are basically four types of tissues are observed in the plants: meristematic tissue, dermal tissue, ground tissue, and vascular tissue. Okay, so we will have a brief discussion about the each and every tissue. The meristematic tissue, which is responsible for the overall growth and repair. Overall growth and repair of the plant. Okay, this meristematic tissue is responsible for the overall growth and repair of the plant. And next here, the dermal tissue, it is a covering layer of the entire plant body. It is a covering layer of the entire plant body. It gives the protection. It gives the protection against the parasitic invasions and breaking and splitting of the branch. Okay, here it is an extra covering or covering layer. Around the plant. And it protects from injuries. Breakage or injuries or splitting. Okay, and next one will be the ground tissue, which forms the bulk of the plant body and it gives a mechanical strength to the plant. It forms the bulk of the plant body. And it gives mechanical support. And next one will be the vascular tissue. Vascular tissue. Okay, vascular tissue is the transport tissue for the transportation of food and water from one part of the plant to the other part of the plant. Okay, here this is the transportation of food and water. Okay, here the four types of different plant tissues performing the different functions in the plant body. Like meristematic tissue is responsible for the overall growth and repair of the plant body, whereas the dermal tissue, it is a covering layer around the plant and it protects the plant from the parasitic invasion and mechanical injuries and breakage. And whereas the ground tissue, it forms the bulk of the tissue or bulk of the plant body and it gives the mechanical strength to the plant body. And coming to the last one will be the vascular tissues. These are the tissues mainly responsible for the transportation of food and water from one part of the plant to the other part of the plant. Okay, we will have a detailed discussion about each and every tissue one by one. The first one will be the meristematic tissue. Meristematic tissue is a type of plant tissue which is observed or it is responsible for overall growth and repair. Overall growth and repair. Meristematic tissue is the tissue which is responsible for the overall growth and repair of the plant body, and we are having again three types of meristematic tissues here. One is the apical meristem, lateral meristem, and intercalary meristem. Okay, apical meristem is a type of meristematic tissue present at the tips, root tip and shoot tip. So here we observe this type of meristem at the root tip and shoot tip. And what is the function of this apical meristem means here it is responsible for the lengthwise growth of the plant. So here, lengthwise growth of the plant. Okay, apical meristem is a type of meristem observed in the root tip and shoot tip, whereas it is responsible for the lengthwise growth of the plant body. Okay, next one will be the lateral meristem. It is present in a sidewise, or it is present around the shoot in a lateral manner. Around the plant in a lateral manner, and it is responsible for sidewise growth. Or increase the girth of the plant, or increase girth of the stem. Okay, the lateral meristem is responsible for the sidewise growth, and it is present in a lateral manner around the plant body, and it will increase the girth of the stem. And next one, intercalary meristem. This is present at the branch part. It is present at the branch points from where the new leaves and new flowers will arise, where we observe the intercalary meristem. So this is about the meristematic tissue, which is divided into the apical meristem. It is present at the root tip and shoot tip, whereas it is responsible for the lengthwise growth of the plant, whereas the lateral meristem is present on the lateral sides or around the plant body in a lateral manner, and it is responsible for the sidewise growth, or it increases the girth of the plant. Next, intercalary meristem. It is present at the branch points from where the leaves and new flowers will arises, and it is also present in between the branches or in between the gaps of the various tissues. Okay. this is about the meristematic tissue, which is responsible for the overall growth and repair of the plant body. And next we switch on to the another plant tissue, that is the dermal tissue. Okay, dermal tissue is an extra covering it is a covering layer of the plant around the entire plant body. The covering layer around the entire plant body is a dermal tissue, and this dermal tissue, it is a single layer of cells. It possesses a single layer of cells and the shapes of the cells are varying depending on their function. Okay? The dermal tissue possesses a single layer of cells, and the shape and size of the cell may vary depending on their location and depending on their function. So this dermal tissue is again divided into the epidermis and mesodermis and endodermis. Okay, dermal tissue is a covering layer around the plant body, and it possesses a single layer of cells with the different shapes and sizes depending on their function. And again, dermal tissue is differentiated into the epidermis, mesodermis and endodermis depending on their thickness of the cells and location of the cell. Okay, coming to the dermal tissue, there are a lot of functions performed by the dermal tissue. This dermal tissue protects the plant from the invasion, parasitic invasion, by secreting the various gums and resins, and it also protects the plant from mechanical injuries or wound healing. It heals the wounds or injuries of the plant by secreting the milk or gum. So when you observe some plants like acacia and neem, sticky substance will be secreted from the plant or the dermal layer of the plant. These are called the gums, and these are the secretions of the dermal tissue. Okay, and in case of root, this dermal tissue possesses a hair-like structure which are called as the root hairs, and these root hairs are useful in the absorption of the water and minerals from the soil. Whereas in case of leaves, this dermal tissue possesses the minute pores which are called as the stomata, and these stomata are responsible for the exchange of the gas. And these stomata are covered with the kidney-shaped cells which are called the cord cell. Okay. When you observe the real leaf, dermal tissue of a real leaf here, when you observe the observation of real leaf, okay, take the leaf peak of a real leaf in a single stroke and put it on a slide and cover it with a cover slip and observe it under the microscope. You will get the cells like this here. And in this leaf field cells, we will observe minute pores which are called as the stomata. Okay. The dermal tissue, the cells of the dermal tissue are somewhat thick walled compared with the cells of the meristematic tissue. And dermal tissue is playing several important functions in the plant. It is covering layer around the plant body, and it is responsible for the exchange of gases in the leaf, whereas absorption of water and minerals in the roots, and protection of the plant from the parasitic invasion and wound healing or mechanical injuries to the plant. So all these functions are performed by the germal tissue. And coming to the another tissue, ground tissue. Okay, the ground tissue, it forms the bulk of the plant body where the cells are large and compactly packed, and the bulk of the plant is mainly made up of ground tissue. Okay, and it gives the mechanical strength and support to the plant body, whereas the ground tissue is again various types here. Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, these are the various types of varieties in the ground tissue depending on their function. Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, first one. Here the cells are small and soft. And loosely packed. Here the cells are thick walled. The cells are thin. In parenchyma, the cells are thin, soft and loosely packed, whereas in case of collenchyma, cells are thick walled. Thick walled and longer and tightly packed. Whereas in case of sclerenchyma, the cells are thick walled, and longer, tightly packed. Okay, here the parenchyma is a type of ground tissue where the cells are thin and soft, loosely packed. Again, this parenchyma is of various types. If the parenchyma possesses a chloroplast, that may be treated as a chlorenchyma. And if the parenchyma possesses the air cavities, it may be called as the aerenchyma. If the parenchyma possesses the storage tissue, that is the storage parenchyma. Okay, these are the varieties of the parenchyma depending on their variations in the presence of the cell. Like if the parenchyma possesses the chloroplast, that may be called as the chlorenchyma. If the parenchyma possesses the air cavities to store the food, that may be treated as the parenchyma. If the parenchyma possesses the storage tissue for the storing the various food and nutrients, that may be treated as the storage parenchyma. And coming to the another one here, the collenchyma, the cells are thick-walled and longer and tightly packed and gives a mechanical support, whereas the sclerenchyma, here the cells are thick-walled and longer, tightly packed. This sclerenchyma also gives the strength and mechanical support to the plant body. Okay, here this is about the ground tissue, where the large cells are formed and it forms the bulk of the plant body. Okay, this is about the ground tissue. And coming to the another tissue here, vascular tissues. Okay, vascular tissues, the name itself indicates that these are the vessels. Vessels in the plant body to transport the metabolites from one part of the body to the other part of the plant body. So what are transported? So food is prepared by the leaves by the process of photosynthesis, and it must be transported to the tip of the root, whereas the water and minerals are absorbed from the soil by the roots, and these has to be transported to the shoot tip. So there must be a transport tissue for the transportation of food and water throughout the plant body. For this, the vascular tissues are designed in the plant body. Like here, the vascular tissues are xylem and phloem. Okay, xylem is a water conducting tissue. Water transportation tissue or water conducting tissue. It transports the water absorbed by the roots to the tip of the plant, shoot tip of the plant. By the various mechanisms, root pressure is there, and water is absorbed by the root hairs from the soil by the osmosis, and this absorbed water is pumped or pushed to the tip of the plant body by the root pressure and various transpiratory pull. Various mechanisms are designed in the plant body to transport the water from the soil to the tip of the plant body. And next one will be the phloem. Okay, phloem is a food conducting tissue. Okay, the phloem is a food conducting tissue. It transports the food which is prepared in the leaves by the process of photosynthesis, and this food has to be transported to the different parts of the plant until the root tip by the phloem tissue. So phloem is a food conducting tissue. So what are the variations? Is there any difference between the phloem and xylem? These both are the vascular tissues which are present sidewise. So how can we differentiate? This is a xylem and this is a phloem. And in the xylem, we are having the cells like tracheid cells. And fibers and parenchyma. Whereas in case of phloem, sieve cells, sieve tubes, and fibers, parenchyma. in xylem we will observe the tracheids, xylem tracheids and fibers, parenchyma cells, whereas in case of phloem we will observe the sieve cells, sieve tubes and fibers, phloem fibers and parenchyma cells. So these are the vascular tissues which conduct the food and water from one part of the body to the other part of the body. For this we are having an activity. So take a plant, potted plant, and take a potted plant and cut and up to the level of the root, up to the level of the root, and put it in a colored water. Put it in a colored water for some time. Then take a section of the shoot. Take a section of the shoot. You will observe the arrangement like this here. Okay, for the observation of vascular tissue, we will do an activity. Take a potted plant and cut up to the shoot level and put it in a colored water. After some time, take a section of the shoot and make it a slide and observe it under the microscope. You will get like this here. This is an arrangement of the cells in the shoot or dicot stem. Like this is a meristematic tissue. This is a meristematic tissue, and the covering layer, entire covering layer, this is the dermal tissue. And this is the ground tissue. And the vascular tissues are arranged in the sidewise like the red colored vessels or xylem, where when we put it in a colored water, that's why this water is pumped to the different parts of the plant body through the xylem. That's why they are stained with a red color. And beside the xylem, we will observe the phloem. So this is about the vascular tissues. So the plant tissues are there, 4 varieties: meristematic tissue, dermal tissue, ground tissue and vascular tissue. So meristematic tissue is a tissue which is responsible for the overall growth and repair of the plant body, and it is again of 2 to 3 types here. Apical meristem, which is present in the root tip and shoot tip, and it is responsible for the lengthwise growth of the plant. Whereas the lateral meristem, it is present as a covering around the shoot in a lateral manner, and it is responsible for the increase in girth of the plant. Whereas the intercalary meristem, this is a meristematic tissue present at the branch points where the new leaves and flowers will arrive. So that is about the meristematic tissue. Coming to the dermal tissue, it is a covering layer around the entire plant body, and it performs the various functions like it protects the plant from the parasitic invasion, and it protects the plant from the mechanical injuries by secreting the gums and milk, like acacia and neem plants will observe the secretion of the gums from the dermal layer of the plant. Whereas this dermal tissue possesses a single layer of cells, and These cells may vary from place to place in their shapes, designed into epidermis, mesodermis, and endodermis. And this dermal tissue at different locations perform the different functions, like dermal tissue in the leaf is responsible for the exchange and transportation of gases, whereas the dermal tissue in the root hair is responsible for the absorption of water and minerals from the soil. Coming to the ground tissue poses the large cells and it forms the bulk of the plant body, whereas the ground tissue is again of various types here: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, the cells are thin and soft and loosely packed. If the parenchyma contain the chloroplast, that may be called as the chlorenchyma. If the parenchyma poses the air cavities, that is called as the aerenchyma. If the parenchyma stores the food material, that may be treated as the storage parenchyma. And coming to the collenchyma, the cells are thick-walled and these are longer cells, give the mechanical support to the plant. Whereas in case of sclerenchyma, the cells are also thick-walled and longer. They also provide the mechanical strength to the plant body. So this is about the ground tissue, and coming to the vascular tissues. Vascular tissues are the tissues which are transport channels in the plant for the transportation of food and water from one part of the plant body to the other part of the plant. The xylem is a water conducting tissue which poses the tracheids cells, fibers, and parenchyma cells. Whereas in case of phloem is the food conducting tissue. It poses the sieve cells, sieve tubes, and phloem fibers and parenchyma cells. So this is about our topic of the plant tissues. The plants are the multicellular organisms which possess the various types of tissues to perform the various functions. So thank you one and all. We will meet again with a new video.